Let's talk about the GRE exam. Okay, so this webinar is all about the quantitative reasoning section. It's just to give you a basic overview of what the GRE exam, the quantitative reasoning section entails, and what are some of the things that you should already be familiar with. So this is particularly geared towards students who are just studying for the exam. Obviously, if you've already been studying for the exam for several months, this webinar is probably not the best fit for you. This is really tailored to a broad audience. And of course, if you're already preparing and you need, advanced foundational help, practice questions, that's where our website comes in, right? We have tons of resources for you. We have practice exams, practice questions. We have video lectures as well, of course, that we frequently update. So let's get started. GRE secrets and strategies. So welcome to our live webinar. This is going to be focused just on the quantitative reasoning section of the exam. Before we even start, right, before we can even talk about the math section, we have to review the format of the exam. Now, if you know the format of the exam, I do apologize, right? Some of you are saying, hey, I already know the format of the exam. That's the first thing we look at. Yeah, believe it or not, there's actually a lot of students who don't know the format. As I mentioned before, this is really geared to a wide audience. So I'm really just going to be taking into the basics, and all of the basics are very powerful approaches. First thing is first, you have to know the format of the exam. So here's a basic overview of the GRE exam. You will always start off with the analytical writing section. 99% of you, probably 100% of you, are taking a computerized exam. Yes, you can take the GRE with paper and pencil, but I highly doubt any of you will be taking that. You'll be taking the frequently used computer adaptive, and you're going to be sitting on a computer for quite a long time. So it's imperative that when you do practice, you're not always practicing using your prep books, right? Like official ETS, they have their workbooks, Kaplan, Barron's. I mean, a bunch of companies offer GRE practice tests. However, please do not, make sure that all of your practice sessions are not with your pen, pencil, and paper. That is not going to prepare you for the exam, actually. When you sit down on that computer for 4 hours, for more than 4 hours, you are going to have a difficult time because it's so different. It's so different by taking the GRE exam on paper and pencil as opposed to the computer, believe it or not, seriously. Very quick example, when I went to college, when I went to undergrad, it's a huge thing now, right? Digital textbooks, PDF textbooks. I'll tell you one thing right now. For me, I can't stand digital, PDF copies. My brain does not, I can't read a textbook on a computer. It's just not for me. So every student is different. And if you're that student who has trouble, just like me, looking at a computer screen of, a bunch of words that you have to read, process, sit there for 4 hours to take an exam, you have to train yourself. So that's very important. When you do practice tests, please try to get as many as computer simulated. You want to make sure that you have simulated testing conditions. And a lot of companies offer that. I know Kaplan offers it. We offer it. Of course, the official ETS, you can take 2 free-length full exams. That's the first thing you want to, of course, check out. So let's go ahead and just review the sections. Analytical writing, you have 2 tasks: analyze an argument, analyze an issue. This is a quantitative reasoning webinar, so I won't be going over that, but you need to understand the difference between the two. They're very important. 30 minutes per task. Then, as soon as you finish your essays, you move on to the you can move on either to the verbal reasoning section or quantitative. You have no idea what it is. It can be verbal followed by verbal. It can be quantitative followed by verbal, or whatever. It doesn't matter. However, you have 2 sections of verbal, 2 sections of quantitative. That is the main part. And of course, this is a computer adaptive exam. What does that mean? We'll get more of that into detail when we talk about one of the strategies. It means that if you perform poorly on one of the first quantitative reasoning sections, the computer, it's an adaptive nature. It knows, hey, okay, this student is struggling with X amount of questions. So what we're going to do for the second quantitative reasoning section is the questions will be easier in nature. Is that a good thing? No, it's not. Of course not. You won't be able to reach the 99 percentile mark, but it's a computer adaptive exam. You should keep that in mind. Okay, and of course you have a unscored section. Please don't try to guess what the unscored section is. You will not know. You don't know. So please take every section seriously. And then you have a research section, which is always at the end of the exam. This is just for testing purposes. They're gathering data to continually improve their exam year after year after year, or I should say every several months. So let's now go ahead and talk about boosting your GRE score. Number one, the obvious, know the format of the GRE exam. Yeah, we just went over that. I think you know that now. Number two, this is where we get into the actual content now. Understand the types of questions that are present in the quantitative reasoning section. You need to know exactly what you're going to see, what types of questions you're going to see on the GRE Quant section. Very important. But chances are you guys already know this. If not, there's a lot of new students here, which I don't recognize. And if you're just starting to prepare for the GRE exam, this is very important. You need to understand. Here are the four main types of question. Quantitative comparison questions, very important. Quantitative comparison questions. What does that look like? What is that? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at it right now. Here is an example of a quantitative comparison question. So in these questions, so let me go ahead and take out my pen. So let me go ahead and draw. So in the quantitative reasoning questions, quantitative comparison type questions, you may or may not have a centered piece of information. It can be there, it may not be there. However, if it's there, you have to, of course, use that. It's going to help you solve the problem. And basically, a quantitative comparison question, all it is you're comparing quantity A versus quantity B. That's all you are doing. Is quantity A greater in value? Is quantity B greater in value? Are they the same? Or perhaps we don't know, there's not enough information, or we don't know because we're getting conflicting answer when we plug in different scenarios, and therefore the relationship cannot be determined. So one of the first things, if this is new to you, first understand all you're doing is comparing quantity A versus quantity B. But more importantly, you need to memorize the answer choices. Pretty simple, but it should be second-hand nature for you. You shouldn't look and say, hey, for quantitative comparison questions, let me look, answer choice A reads quantity A is greater. No, every single quantitative comparison question will have the same exact answer choices. So quantity A is greater. That's answer choice A all the time. B is always quantity B is greater. C is that they're equal. And D always means that the relationship cannot be determined. Do not waste your time reading this. It's the first thing. First thing when you open and study for the GRE Math, you have to know the format of the exam. That's the first thing we teach you. That's the first thing that most companies will tell you about the quantitative comparison question types. You have to memorize A, B, C, D. Very straightforward, very simple. When you're on the exam, you don't worry about what A, B, C, D is saying. You're simply trying to figure out what's going on. Is the value of quantity A greater? Is quantity B greater? We don't know what happens. A couple other things on quantitative comparison questions that I would like to talk about. Number one, quantitative comparison question types can be easily solved. Usually, they don't require more than 60 seconds. Most quantitative comparison questions do not require more than 60 seconds of your time. Number two, quantitative reasoning questions, quantitative comparison, sorry, I always mess this up. Quantitative comparison type questions, they don't care about you doing very, very fine arithmetic calculations. So estimation strategy is heavily employed over here. You should be able to estimate things and determine whether or not, which quantity is greater. You're not going to be doing long and arduous calculations. That's not going to happen. If it looks like there's a lot of heavy calculations, chances are there is a shortcut and you're doing it the long way, which is the wrong way. Okay, and we'll come back to this question later on, but this is just a typical quantitative comparison question type. You'll see anywhere from 7, 8, 9 quantitative comparison type questions on your exam. It's very important. Yeah, if it's that's more than 40% of your exam for each of the math sections, right? So you have to be comfortable with this. Okay, so let me go ahead and clear off this information. All right, so let's clear that. Okay, fantastic. Now, let's go back to the slide. So we've talked about quantitative comparison type questions. The next type is your multiple choice. Multiple choice questions. These are your standard multiple choice questions that you've seen all your life, right? In high school and college. They're just multiple choice. So let's pull that up. As you can see, we have 5 answer choices. You have a problem, word problem, arithmetic problem, whatever, geometry based, it can be data analysis based, whatever it is. It's just a regular problem. It's a multiple choice and it only has one correct answer. How do you know that? Well, you have to go ahead and take a look at, let's take a look at this over here. So as you can see, A, B, C, D, E are actually all circular in nature. They're circles. The GRE exam does have one or more correct answer question types. Those are always going to be in a square box. So let me show you that right now. That is always going to be in a square box. So as you can see, okay, so go to this slide. As you can see over here, we have square boxes. And this means that this is a different kind of question. This is a multiple choice question, obviously, but it's a one or more. It could be, the answer could be A, the answer could be A, B, C, D, E, all of them. So, but how do you recognize that? Well, it's very intuitive for you. If it's a circle, it's just one correct answer. If it's a square, it could be one or more. So that's pretty much it for the multiple choice and multiple choice one or more correct answer question types. The last thing we have here is the numeric entry questions. So these are questions where you have to enter in your answer. And actually, let me see. So I apologize. Actually, you can't see the text box here, but here's the question. And on the bottom, it should actually have a box, a text box where you take your mouse and you click on it and you enter in that problem. Let's talk about numeric entry questions. Let's talk about that. Numeric entry questions, some of the numeric entry questions, what it does, it requires finite calculations. And this is where your calculator, one of the features of the calculator becomes your best friend. On the calculator, there is something called a transfer button. Use that. Why? Let's just say your answer is 323.895726. Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead and write that down on your piece of paper and then re-enter that. Why would you do that? Okay, that's why they have the transfer button there. You just hit transfer, and whatever it shows on that calculator screen, it's going to get automatically transferred onto your screen, and that's it. So this is a common mistake, especially for numerical entry type questions. A lot of students do rounding off errors. They'll either round off too early in the game, so they're doing some calculations and they're not that well familiar with the GRE calculator. They're writing down it's a multi-step problem. They solve one part, they're rounding off even to the hundredths place or tenths place, whatever that is. But eventually when you get to that answer, you actually get the wrong answer. Okay, so that's actually a very common mistake, rounding off errors. Please make sure that you're not rounding off early on. Go ahead and write those 5 numbers out, or just learn how to use a calculator. Okay, that's another tip. I actually didn't mention it here. It's an obvious one, but one of the important tips is understand how to use the GRE calculator. It's not your nice scientific calculator. It's not your nice graphing calculator that you had in high school and college. It's a very simple on-screen calculator, very dinky looking almost. Nobody likes it, but you have to know how to use it. And you should understand all the different features of the calculator to put it to your advantage. All right, so that's about it that I have to say for numeric entry, quantitative, multiple choice, and multiple choice and one or more correct answer choices. Okay, so now let's go ahead and, actually I promised I wouldn't solve any of these over here. These are actually from, I believe, exam 1 or exam 3. I've taken that. So some of you probably have already solved these questions. Some of you have not, because you probably don't even have an account on our website, which is completely fine. By the way, you can sign up on our website. You get access to one full and free exam. If you have our GRE workbook, by the way, you get an automatic 14-day access to all of our content. So let's just solve one of these questions. Why not, right? Now let's solve a quantitative comparison type question. This is an easy one. It's not easy, but it's also not hard at all. You just have to know what you're doing. So let's go ahead and see. Let me use my mouse. I apologize. My drawings may be a little ugly because I'm using a mouse. Typically, I would use a Apple Pencil, so it'd be very nice. But I haven't integrated that yet, so I'll be using my mouse. Please bear with me. Okay. So centered information: a circle has a circumference of 4 pi. Fantastic. Quantity A: the perimeter of a square inscribed into the circle, versus quantity B. Let me move this out. I can't even see what quantity B is. Okay, quantity B, twice the diameter of the circle. Okay, how do you go ahead and do that? You have to work fast. Before you even just take a step back, right? Just gather your thoughts for a second, a couple of seconds, see what's going on. Right? Let's not just dive in quickly. That's actually one of the strategies that we're going, that's a last strategy we're going to talk about. Just know what's going on. Don't be so quick to answer the problem to see, hey, what do I have to do? You're going to save time like that. What do I have to do? Okay, they're giving me the circumference circumference of a circle, 4 pi, great. I know automatically I can find the diameter, I can find the radius, I can calculate the area, great. Okay, but now I also see quantity B states twice the diameter of the circle. Hey, that's super easy, right? I can do that mentally, right? I'll write it down for you, but most of you should be able to get the value of quantity B mentally. In less than 2 seconds, you should be able to calculate that. If not, you have to work on your mental math skills, okay, guys? If you want to get a high score on the GRE, right? So circumference has the circumference of circle here is 4 pi. We know the formula. Circumference is equal to 2 pi r, or pi times the diameter, right? Either or. Right here, 4 pi. If c is equal to 4 pi, that means that the diameter here is 4. So d is equal to 4, and quantity B states twice the diameter of the circle. All right, what's twice of 4? 4 times 2 is 8. Fantastic. As you can see, this is pretty simple mental mathematics, right? I would agree with that. I think everybody in this room can agree with me that this is a very straightforward mental mathematical calculation. Now, quantity A, the perimeter of a square inscribed into the circle. Here's where we get, here's where the fun stuff comes in, right? So the perimeter of a square that is inscribed into the circle. First of all, read it carefully, right? What's inscribed? The square is inscribed into the circle. What does that mean? So you have to know how to draw it, right? You have to, this is geometry based, and a lot of people struggle with geometry, but this is a fairly simple one. The square is inscribed into the circle. That means that all 4 points of the square are going to be touching the circle. So once again, I apologize for the really bad drawing, but here is my square. I know it looks like a rectangle, but too bad. Remember, the GRE, in the GRE math, a lot of the diagrams in geometry, whatever it looks like, it's not what it looks like, right? Never assume what it looks like. So here's a rectangle, but it's not. Okay, so the perimeter of a square inscribed into the circle, how do we do this? Well, I know that my diameter is 4. So here's my center of the circle, and if my diameter is 4, that means that the radius is 2, and we can actually just cut up this entire thing. We can cut up this entire thing into what? We can say this is 2, this is 2, we can say this is 2, we can also say this is 2. So again, I do apologize, it looks pretty horrible here. But as you can see, all I've done is I've taken this square and now I've cut it into 4 parts. We have 4 triangles over here, and each the lengths of these are 2 and 2. Why do we care about that? Well, let me go ahead and show you. So what kind of triangle have we created here? Let's focus in on this over here. Let me use a blue color. So all we've done now is created a triangle that looks like this. Here's my right angle. This length is 2, this length is 2, and of course I need to figure out what that is. And that will give me this length over here. And of course, then I can find the perimeter. How do we figure this out? 2 ways. 2 ways. Pythagorean theorem, but that's not the efficient way. Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Yeah, you can do this easy, right? 2 squares, 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, square root, so it's square root of 8. Or you need to know the formula. You need to know your 30-60-90 rule and 45-45-90 rule. Let's just review the 45-45-90 rule. That's why that allows you for very quick mental calculations. So what's the rule if you don't know? Here's my right angle. This is 45 degrees, and this is also 45 degrees. How do I know that? Well, remember, my sides are the same. If it's the same sides, if it's the same length on both sides, that means that's a 45-45-90 triangle. And the rule is that this side is x, this side is x, and this side is x and radical 2. X radical 2. This is a formula. So if you know it, it's very easy. So if you have this memorized, you just take a look at this problem over here. You see that this is 2. That means the hypotenuse here is going to be what? 2 radical 2. That's all it is. You should know that. Super easy. So we know that this is 2 radical 2, one of the sides, but we're looking for the perimeter. Perimeter is all 4 sides. So we can just do 4 times 2 radical 2, which is just 8 radical 2. Now, as you can see, I'm using a mouse, it's taken me some time to draw it, but this can all be done kind of mentally. Wouldn't you agree with me? If not, it's fine, right? Don't stress. You know, you're saying, hey, this is, you know, I can't do that mentally. I need to use this piece of paper. That's fine. That's fine. You'll improve. You'll get better at that. But this is actually a very simple question where you know your foundations, you know the tips and shortcuts, you know your 45-45-90 rule, you know your 30-60-90 rule, and all these are applied, and you're working with pretty simple numbers here. You should be able to solve the question very quickly. This is 8 radical 2. Obviously, what's greater in value? 8 radical 2 is greater than 8. Therefore, quantity A is greater. That's a straightforward question. It's an easy question. It is. It is. Okay, so let me clear this up. And now let's move on. So I've just solved one just to show you this quantitative comparison question. I know many students, especially if you're starting for the GRE exam, studying it, this is a new section for you. So I've gone over one problem. Now we have the regular problem solving question. This is one or more, and then this is the numerical entry response. I won't be going over that. Go ahead and try that yourself. This is a great question. You need to know, once again, some geometry rules over here. This is an easy question. This laws of exponents. You have to know your laws of exponents. And this question over here is a numerical entry question as well. We won't go over this. Let's go on to the strategies, right? We're talking about the strategies. We're not talking about foundations. We already built you the entire foundational course. We've already gone over all the different types of mathematical concepts you need to understand. So this webinar is just about basic strategies. So let's move on. Important strategy number 1, we just did that. Know the format of the GRE exam and the question types. Okay, let's review some of the questions. Don't waste too much time on one question. This is the main point here. Every question within the same section is weighted the same. This is interesting. A lot of students will even message us on our chat system on our website and ask us about this. A lot of students think that a question is worth more, right? Let's just say they're doing the quantitative reasoning section. They're on question number 19. It's pretty hard, but they're like, hey man, I gotta get this right. This is worth 3 points, right? Let's just say every question is worth 1 point, and for some reason in their mind, they're thinking this question is worth 2 points or 3 points. I don't know why people think that. I know why people think that, but it's not true. According to the official ETS, the company, they say that every question within the same section is weighted the same. That means that if you solve a super easy problem, you're getting 1 point if you get it correct, of course. And if you solve question number 20 and it's super hard and designed to throw you off, and if you also answer it correctly, that's also worth the same point. So the main idea here is don't waste too much time on one question because you think it's going to give you, because it's worth more. It's not worth more. The notion, of course, is that you want to do very well on the first quant section, because if you don't, that will affect your weighted score on the second quant section. That's the computer adaptive nature of the exam. If you want to score high, you have to really ace the first section, and then of course the second section as well. So that's a pretty general strategy, but a lot of students confuse that and don't know that every question within that section is weighted the exact same. Okay, let's go on. Important strategy number 2. Okay, actually, someone just messaged me saying, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll just stop very quickly for a second. Like, nobody signed off here. Can somebody type in the chat if they can still hear me? Okay, great. Okay, so you can, so people can still hear me. So I apologize to that one individual. I apologize for that. It must be some kind of issue on your end. Maybe just try rejoining the webinar. Okay, important strategy number 2. A multiple answer question type problem can have only one correct answer. This is actually interesting and important. For some reason, students think, hey, this is a multiple answer question type problem. So there's several answers, and they can't, some students don't realize the concept that there can sometimes still just be one correct answer choice. Okay, they think, hey, this is a multiple answer question type problem, so there must be at least 2 correct answers. It has to be. they get that one, and now they're just stuck in trying to see what other fits. I know this may sound silly, but it's actually not. A lot of people, it's actually a common mistake. A multiple answer question type can have only one correct answer. Not in this question, okay, but don't read the question, of course. But my answer could just be A, and that's it. Okay, that's an easy one, but I just have to get it out there because some students make that mistake. Okay, let's go on to important strategy number 3. Use your scratch paper effectively. I know these are simple strategies. Use your scratch paper effectively. You can always ask for additional scrap paper. When you use your scrap paper, don't write all over the place. Okay, don't start off with the middle, then go on the top. Guess what? Because you'll be writing some important notes, important calculations on your paper, and then you may get stuck on it. You're going to move on to another question because you want to come back to it later. And now when you go back, your scrap paper is a mess. Okay, make it neat, be organized, draw lines if you have to very quickly, and just make sure that you show your work for a certain area of the scrap paper. This way, if you do skip that over and come back to it, you know exactly where it is and you don't waste valuable time. Yeah, I know time management is very important for this exam. Okay, let's move on. We have here estimation strategy. Once again, this is literally directly from the video lecture that I've created for the Argo Prep Introductions lecture series for the GRE Math. We talk about the estimation strategy. We talk about a bunch of strategy, right? Doubling and halving, plug and check, all that kind of fun stuff. Estimation strategy is cool. It only works under the right circumstances. I'm going to briefly go over it just because it's a webinar. I don't want to keep this long. We just have a couple of slides left. It'll be over. But you should learn about the estimation strategy and when to use it. It's a powerful strategy. Typically, it can be used in the quantitative comparison question types. It's very useful there. But how do you know when to use the estimation strategy? Let's talk about that. You will be able to use the estimation strategy, or that question will be hinting to you to use the estimation strategy if your answer choices are far apart from each other. What does that mean? Well, take a look at this. Answer choice A reads 1,762 point blah blah. The next answer choice is 2,000 something. The next answer choice is 2,950. See, there's a good gap between these questions. Yeah, there's a good gap. Therefore, I can say whatever the question is, whatever the scenario is, I'll just keep that in my mind. Hey, I may be able to employ the estimation strategy to go ahead and achieve this answer quicker, so I don't have to reach for my on-screen calculator. Now, as opposed to here, A, B, C, D, so here we have answer choice B is 3.21, answer choice C is 3.33. Yikes, those are like very close together, and automatically I know that it's too close together. I should not use the estimation strategy. That will probably not help me. Right? This is probably some kind of fine calculation. So I need to go ahead and either do my calculations on paper or mental math or on my calculator, of course. Okay, that's the estimation strategy. So let's see, what else do we have over here? So, okay, now so we've covered the estimation strategy. There's a bunch of practice problems on our website where you can practice your estimation strategy on our practice questions, but also the video lecture that we cover. We go over a bunch of scenarios where we employ the estimation strategy. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. There's a typo here on the first word. It should just say strategy number 5. Okay, learning concepts, formulas, and techniques it beats than just practicing. It beats practice. What do I mean by that? A lot of students think that you just sitting there day after day or every other day studying for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, just studying is going to make you get a high score on the GRE test. That's actually not true. I know a lot of students, that's what they do. We're all different. Some students don't practice. Some students learn the concepts and they don't practice a lot because they don't have to. We're all different kind of learners, but there's a certain type of learner group that this is what they do. And I know a bunch of people in real life that do this. What they do is they just practice. They say practice test, practice. They just practice. What they fail to do is to identify their weak areas and learn those concepts. So that's what I mean. If you take a look at, if you analyze the students who are in the 99th percentile, the students who score a perfect 170 on the scores, what they tell you is learn concepts, formulas, and techniques. Spend a greater time on that rather than practicing. Now, of course, you have to practice. This is a computer adaptive exam. I just told you need to build up mental stamina and all that kind of stuff. You do have to practice, but you have to learn your concepts, formulas, and techniques. You have to get that down. That's imperative. So if you don't know that, then it's a problem. Okay, now this is, the GRE says it's high school math, right? If you go to the ETS website, it says it's just all high school mathematics. Yeah, it is. But don't let that fool you. When people think about high school math, it's like, well, hey, it's easy. I'm going to grad school. Hello. I'm going to go for my master's degree. I finished my bachelor's. Yeah, it's high school math, all right. But this exam is designed to trick you. So you have to watch out for that when you do practice. Just because it's high school math doesn't mean that if you just sit down for the exam, you're going to get a high score. What do I have to tell you about this? Yeah, you have to learn the concepts and apply various techniques. What do I mean by that? You need to understand when in a situation, in a geometry question, you see and identify that it's a 45-45 90 triangle or 30-60-90 degree triangle, or if you have to use a Pythagorean theorem, or if you have to employ another strategy, you have to understand how you're going to solve this quadratic equation. Do you need to use the formula (-b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a? Probably not. There's a better way. Are you going to factor it out? What are you going to do? There's so many. That's the beauty of math, right? In every exam that we teach, specialized high school, GRE, whatever the case is, the beauty of mathematics is that I can show you 10 different ways to approach the problem, but there's always an efficient way. There's always an effective way. There's always the way that saves you time. That's what you need to do. You need to understand that. So the big 4 topics in the GRE math section are arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and data analysis. Sounds simple? Not really. They're much further divided into subtopics, of course. But this is just the big 4. Big 4. ETS likes to define it as the big 4 topics. There's a bunch of subtopics that you need to know there. Now, what I want to talk about these big 4 topics is arithmetic and algebra are pretty simple. They're simple because they're simple. Seriously, arithmetic and algebra, you can review it, you know it, laws of exponents, algebraic equations. What else do we have? We have solving linear equations, system of equations, working with 2 linear equations. You have a bunch of all these things, number properties. These are simple. If you're just starting off, you can get away with that. That's fine. You know, just put in a nice amount of practice time, learn the concepts, you'll be fine with arithmetic and algebra. And in fact, on the exam, on the actual test date, the ETS gives you easy and medium questions, medium level rated questions for arithmetic and algebra. The last 2 are the real things, okay? The last 2 is where you really need to focus your stuff on. Okay, so after you've got arithmetic and algebra down, you really need to focus on geometry and data analysis. Students hate geometry. Just you know, geometry. Sometimes it's hard to grasp the concepts. What's particularly annoying about geometry for the GRE exam is that, as I told you, diagrams are not drawn to scale, and there's so many rules that you need to understand for geometry. They present you one diagram, a diagram. Actually, I apologize. I wish I had a diagram up here so you can also visualize with me. But that diagram is nothing what it actually looks like, because they may show you let me draw something very quick. So they may show you this over here. Let me redraw that. I apologize. Okay, so they may show you this triangle right over here. Pretend this is it looks like a right triangle. It looks like a right triangle, but it's definitely not a right triangle because I did not go ahead and draw that right angle in. So they're going to do all these beautiful things. They're going to show you this perfectly looking triangle that looks like a right triangle, but it's not. They're going to show you something that looks like where both sides are equal, so you can employ the 45-45-90 rule, but it's not true. They're designed to trick you. You have to catch that. You have to identify that, and then you say, hey, that's not what it looks like, and then you have to work with all the scenarios to answer that. So geometry and data analysis type questions, most of the questions are rated medium to hard. So the GRE exam loves to test you on that. So if you want to get if you want to be a 170 scorer, you really need to focus on your geometry and data analysis conceptually, and strengthen that over there. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about is, I have this quote up. Let's go ahead and go to this last thing. Yeah, so this is a pretty cool quotes over here. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe, apparently by Abraham Lincoln. And then the last one is, if I had 60 minutes to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes defining it and 5 minutes solving it. I think most of you already know where I'm going with this, right? You need to identify how to solve the problem. Just because you read it and you're going on your paper and you're doing mindless calculations doesn't mean anything. That's not going to get you a 170. That's not going to get you to the 99th percentile. You need to understand, just read the problem, understand it, define the problem. How do I do this? Okay, this is a multi-step problem. I need to employ this, and then that. Now you do your calculations. Calculations are easy. That's just math, right? 5 plus 2, 3.28 times 5.76. That's the easy stuff, guys. You have a calculator for that. You can use the estimation strategy. That's just calculations. The hardest part is really how to define the problem, right? How do you read the problem and then say, hey, I have to do this, then that, and then this. And that's how I get to the answer. Hey, as long as you can do that, that's it. You're going to ace the exam. You'll be a 99th percentile scorer. That's what even we're doing a LSAT section right now, LSAT series, and that's exactly what our instructors tell you. You need to be able to identify how to solve the problem. Just because you read it and you think you know step 1, right? Hey, I'm going to apply the distributive property, but you have no idea why you're doing it. You're just doing it because it just looks like you have to know. It doesn't look like anything. You need to know exactly before you even start calculating, hey, I have to do this and that and this and that to get to the correct answer. And that's it. And then calculations are fine. That's why I love math. And that's why, many students here, if you're a math person, I think that's why you like math as well, because math, you can calculate. For me, I'm not an English person, because, in English, it's not 5 plus 5 is always equal to 10, right? So that's why I love math. And that's why I think that these are just general strategies, by the way. Hopefully this did help for you. So I don't have any slides for you here. So once again, as I mentioned to you, this specific webinar is designed for a broad audience. This will be posted on our YouTube website, of course, just so students who are watching this are just preparing for the GRE. They know the format of the exam. So now you know the format. Now you know what sections you're dealing with. Now you know what type of questions you have on the quantitative reasoning section. And if I've given you some basic strategies, right? Let's just very quickly review it. Basic strategies, we've covered that already. The basic strategy is don't waste too much time on one question, right? Each question is worth the same. This is an important one also. A multiple answer question type can have just one correct answer. Use your scratch paper effectively. So these are it may seem simple, but when you take all these strategies, when you go on our website and you go ahead and watch all of our video lectures, especially the introduction series, we have a bunch of strategies for you. You have to be able to employ all of them in order to get a good score. So thank you for staying with me. I think it's been a roughly 45-minute video. I'll end it over here. I know it's a Saturday. I know it's a weekend for you. So either you're studying, I hope you have a great and fun study session time. If you're not, then well, I hope you have a great weekend and have a fun weekend. And hopefully, I do hope that you found this webinar helpful. If you did, let us know in the chat box below, and we'll do more webinars, of course. We like to do webinars. It's live. We get interactive feedback, and we just post it, of course, for free on our website. Let us know also if you would like to do some in-depth webinars where we just go over like geometry. I know a lot of students would like that, just a geometry-based webinar and talk about the diagrams and how to visualize that and stuff like that. So let us know. You can also chat with us on our website. Once again, if you're new to us, if you're new to YouTube or any other social media channel, you can always sign up for a free account at argoprep.com. And we also do have a GRE Prep workbook for you as well that you can purchase on Amazon. Okay, so that is the end of the webinar. I hope you guys have a great and fantastic weekend. Bye-bye.